everybody, and welcome to a nostalgic book reading. In this video, we'll be going over a older book. I think it's like a 2003 print, back when zombies were a very big thing in pop culture. I mean, they still are, but there is definitely a time in the early to mid 2000s where zombie mania was all the rage. Like when The Walking Dead first released and all the millions of flash games that were zombie centric, that sort of thing. But we're gonna look at the one piece of definitive media that I can point to and say for certain got me bitten by the zombie bug, pun intended. That is the Zombie Survival Guide, written by Max Brooks. As you can see, it offers complete protection from the living dead. At this point, there was 1 million books in print, and I believe I bought this. Well, I didn't buy it, my parents bought it for me when I was very young, as it was copyrighted in 2003. And I would have been, I think, a whopping 5 years old in 2003. Before I get into the video, I want to wish everybody a good day, or a good night, whenever or wherever you are. I hope your day is going well. And I also have a nice cold bottle of water here. Which has some ice in there. And a bag of chips that I will be occasionally eating throughout the video. I won't be eating them often, as I'm not too sure how many people actually enjoy eating sounds. And I'd like to kind of quarantine that eating experience to their own dedicated videos whenever possible. But sometimes you've got to just, try different things. Let's take a quick little peruse through the table of contents. Starting at section 1, the undead myths and realities, covering the Solanum virus, attributes of zombies, the two different types of zombies, voodoo zombie and Hollywood zombie, one of which being fictional, and the voodoo zombie being a different beast entirely, and the 3 or 4 different classes of outbreak. And then we go on to cover weapons and combat techniques. Everything from rocks to armor. On the defense, which covers fortifying your home or prisons or hospitals and things like that. And then we have this section titled On the Run, which establishes rules and guidelines for moving and operating on the road. On the Attack, which, as the name suggests, indicates rules and regulations regarding attacking a horde of zombies, and some very handy tips and tricks on living in an undead world. Next here we've got a bibliography of recorded attacks, all the way from 60,000 BC, or BCE, if you're an atheist, all the way to 2000 2002 AD in St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands. Again, this could also be read as CE, but I prefer BC and AD. Not for any religious purpose, but mainly because it's what I grew up with, and it's what I know. So let's take some key selections from each chapter or each section. Obviously, we have to start with the exact etymology of zombies in particular. I am honestly a very big, how do I put it, detractor. I'm a massive hater when it comes to fake quotes. And I am fairly certain most, if not all, the quotes in this book are completely fictional, so I will not be reading them because they bother me. So, zombie, noun, also zombies in the plural. An animated corpse that feeds on living human flesh. 2. A voodoo spell that raises the dead. 3. A voodoo snake god. Or 4. One who moves or acts in a daze, like a zombie. A word of West African origin. I wonder if that's true. Probably is. So, what is a zombie? How are they created? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are their needs, their desires? Why are they hostile to humanity? Before discussing any survival techniques, you must first learn what you are trying to survive. We must begin by separating fact from fiction. The Walking Dead are neither a work of black magic nor any other supernatural force. One thing I failed to mention is that Max Brooks is the author of World War Z, a book that I've been meaning to purchase and read for the past, but I don't know, 15 years, and I just never got around to it. Their origin stems from a virus known as solanum, a Latin word used by Jan van der Haven, who first discovered the disease. Here we can see some laboratory equipment. I'll have another chip here. So here we cover information regarding the virus itself. Solanum works by traveling through the bloodstream from the initial point of entry to the brain. Thorough means not yet fully understood. The virus uses the cells of the frontal lobe for replication, destroying them in the process. During this period, all bodily functions cease. By stopping the heart, the infected subject is rendered dead. The brain, however, remains alive but dormant, while the virus mutates its cells into a completely new organ. The most critical trait of this new organ is its independence from oxygen. By removing the need for this all-important resource, the undead brain can utilize, but is in no way dependent upon, the complex support mechanism of the human body. Once mutation is complete, this new organ reanimates the body into a form that bears little resemblance, physiologically speaking, to the original corpse. Some bodily functions remain constant, others operate in a modified capacity, and the remainder shut down completely. This new organism is a zombie, a member of the living dead. Source: extensive research has yet to find an isolated example of solanum in nature. Water, air, and soil in all ecosystems from all parts of the world have turned up negative, as have their accompanying flora and fauna. At the time of this writing, the search continues. Symptoms. The timetable below outlines the process of an infected human, give or take several hours, depending on the individual. Hour 1, pain and discoloration, brown to purple of the infective area. Immediate clotting of the wound, providing the infection came from a wound. Hour 5, fever 99 to 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Chills, slight dementia, vomiting, acute pain in the joints. Hour 8, numbing of extremities and infected area. Increased fever 103 to 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Increased dementia, loss of muscular coordination. Hour 11, paralysis in the lower body, overall numbness, slowed heart rate. Hour 16, coma. Hour 20, heart stoppage, zero brain activity. Hour 23, reanimation. Over the years, we've seen many different interpretations and many different takes and bending of the rules for story purposes of that timeline. Like in the Walking Dead, for example, how quickly a person turns after they die, or how quickly they turn after they're bit, is 100% story driven. Pretty funny. Transference. Solanum is 100% communicable and 100% fatal. Fortunately for the human race, the virus is neither waterborne nor airborne. Humans have never been known to contract the virus from elements in nature. Infection can only occur through direct fluidic contact. A zombie bite, although by far the most recognizable means of transference, is by no means the only one. Humans have been infected by brushing their open wounds against those of a zombie, or by being splattered by its remains after an explosion. Ingestion of infected flesh, provided the person has no open mouth sores, however, results in permanent death rather than infection. Infected flesh has proven to be highly toxic. No information, historical, experimental, or otherwise, has surfaced regarding the results of sexual relations with an undead specimen, but as previously noted, the nature of solanum suggests a high danger of infection. Warning against such an act would be useless, as the only people deranged enough to try would be unconcerned for their own safety. Many have argued that, given the congealed nature of undead bodily fluids, the chances of infection from a non-bite contact should be low. However, it must be remembered that even one organism is enough to begin the cycle. That really brings up images that I'm not comfortable with thinking about. Zombie. Since the living dead first stepped onto the silver screen, Their greatest enemy has not been hunters, but critics, scholars, scientists, and even concerned citizens have all agreed, or all argued, that these movies depict the living dead in a fantastic, unrealistic fashion. Visually stunning weapons, physically impossible action sequences, larger-than-life human characters like Carol, and above all, magical, invincible, even comical ghouls have all added their colors to the controversial rainbow that is the zombie movie. Further criticism argues that this style over substance approach to somnambulist cinema teaches human viewers lessons that may get them killed in a real encounter. These serious charges demand an equally serious defense. While some zombie movies are based on actual events, their goal, indeed the goal of almost every movie in every genre, has been first and foremost to entertain. Unless we are discussing pure documentaries, and even some of those are sweetened. Movie makers must take some artistic license to make their work more palatable to the audience. Even movies that are based on actual events will sacrifice pure reality for good storytelling. Certain characters will be an amalgam of real-life individuals. For example, that female scientist in Chernobyl, she was a amalgam of independent Ukrainian or Belarusian scholars, from what I understand. Others may be purely fictional in order to explain certain facts, facilitate the plotline, or simply add flavor to the scene. One might argue that the role of the artist is to challenge, to educate, and to enlighten her audience. This may be true, but try imparting knowledge to an audience who has either left or fallen asleep within the first 10 minutes of the picture. Accept this basic rule of movie making, and you will understand why Hollywood zombie films stray, in some cases wildly, from the reality on which they are based. In short, use these photoplays as your makers intended, as a source of temporary, lighthearted entertainment and not a visual aid to your survival. Let's review the classes of zombie outbreak, and then we can move along to more interesting topics. Class 1. This is a low-level outbreak, usually in a third world country or first world rural area. The number of zombies in this class of outbreak ranges between 1 and 20. Total human casualties, including those infected, range from 1 to 50. The total duration from the first case to the last known will range between 24 hours and 14 days. The infested area will be small, no larger than a 20-mile radius. In many cases, natural boundaries will determine its limits. Response will be light, either exclusively civilian or with some additional help from local law enforcement. Media coverage will be light, if present at all. If the media is present, look for common stories like homicides or accidents. This is the most common type of outbreak, and also the easiest to go unnoticed. So, Class 2. Urban or densely populated rural areas are included in this level of outbreak. Total zombies will range between 20 and 100. Total human casualties may reach as high as several hundred. The duration of a Class 2 attack may last no longer than a Class 1 outbreak.
In some cases, the larger number of zombies will spark a more immediate response. A rural, sparsely populated outbreak may extend to a 100-mile radius, while an urban outbreak may encompass only several blocks. Suppression will most certainly be organized. Bands of civilians will be replaced by local, state, even federal law enforcement. Look out for an additional, if low-level, military response. The National Guard in the United States, or its equivalent abroad. Most often, so as to ease panic, these units will take a more non-combatant role, providing medical assistance, crowd control, and logistical support. Class 2 outbreaks almost always attract the press, unless the attack occurs in a truly isolated area of the world, or one where the media is strictly controlled. The story will be reported. This does not mean, however, that it will be reported accurately. Class 3, a true crisis. Class 3 outbreaks, more than any other, demonstrate the clear threat posed by the living dead. Zombies will number in the thousands, encompassing an area of several hundred miles. The duration of the attack and a possible lengthy mop-up process could last as long as several months. There will be no chance for a press blackout or cover-up. Even without immediate attention, the sheer magnitude of the attack will leave too many eyewitnesses. This is a full-blown battle, with law enforcement replaced by units of the regular military. A state of emergency will be declared for the infested zone, as well as the neighboring areas. Expect martial law, restricted travel, rationed supplies, federalized services, and strictly monitored communication. This is how the Project Zomboid Nox infection started. Began as a class 3 and then spiraled rapidly out of control. All these measures, however, will take time to implement. The initial phase will be one of chaos as those in power come to grips with the crisis. Riots, looting, and widespread panic will add to their difficulties, further delaying an effective response. While this is happening, those living within the infested area will be at the mercy of the undead. Isolated, abandoned, and surrounded by ghouls, they will have only themselves to depend upon. Class 4. See Living in an Undead World, pages 154 through 81. A bit grim. So let's go over some weapons, I think. Let's cover some fairly interesting takes here. You know what? I think it'd be interesting to go over the sort of weapons that are not recommended before we move on to some of the more recommended ones. And yes, axes and crowbars are indeed highly recommended by Max Brooks. So here we are covering power tools. Popular fiction has shown the awesome, brutal power of the chainsaw. Its lightning-quick, rotating teeth can easily slice through flesh and bone, making the strength and skill required for manual weapons unnecessary. Its roar might also give the owner a much-needed psychological boost. Empowerment in a situation where abject terror is a given. How many horror movies have you seen in which this industrial killing machine has spelled doom for anyone and anything it has touched? personally, I've only seen American Psycho when it comes to that topic. Haven't seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know if it was used in The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turn. I can't remember that much, but maybe. But American Psycho, and I think that was a mental episode that Patrick Bateman was having with that anyway. In reality, however, chainsaws and similar power devices rank extremely low on the list of practical zombie killing weapons. That's a really old style of cordless drill. Like a really old style of cordless drill. For starters, their fuel supply is finite. Once drained, they provide as much protection as a handheld stereo. Carrying extra fuel or power cells leads to the second inherent problem: weight. The average chainsaw weighs 10 pounds compared to a 2-pound machete. Why increase the chances of exhaustion? Safety must also be considered. One slip, and the spinning teeth might be slicing through your skull just as easily as your enemies. I know this was written in 2003, but a lot of chainsaws, if held and used properly, as properly as you can, use it going through a person's head, will automatically stop. See that second ring right there? On a lot of modern chainsaws, that is a stopper, where if the chainsaw kicks back, your hand will hit that stop and it'll automatically cut off the engine, and trust me, it works really well. So they're fairly safe. You'd be more concerned about accidentally going through your own leg, to be honest with you. Like any machine, another problem is noise. A chainsaw's distinctive roar, even if running for just a few seconds, will be enough to broadcast to every zombie within earshot: dinner is served. Yeah, I can agree with that. If you've ever tried to cut something softer with a chainsaw, it's pretty easy to get a chain to come off the bar by accident, or get the chain completely bogged down or something like that. So it makes sense. There's a lot of practical reasons why you wouldn't want to slam a chainsaw into somebody. I mean, it'll kill them. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not saying, like, a chainsaw wouldn't kill somebody, but you probably couldn't kill a lot of people with a chainsaw without the, you know, the fucking chain flying off the bar or something like that. Slings and arrows. It is a commonly held notion that using non-firearm ballistics, such as bows and slingshots, are a waste of energy and resources. In most cases, this is true. However, if used properly, such a weapon will enable you to score a kill at long range with little or no sound. What if you're attempting to escape an infested area? You turn a corner and a single ghoul blocks your path. It's too far away for a hand weapon. Before you get close, its moans will betray your position. The crack of a gun will sound an even louder alarm. What do? In most cases like these, silent weapons may be your only option. So let's go over like some of the more goofy ones on here. Like the sling. And then like some of these, like it blows my mind they're even like considered on here. Made famous from the biblical story of David and Goliath, this weapon has been part of our heritage since prehistoric times. The user places a smooth round stone in the wider center of a thin leather strip, grabs both ends, swings it repeatedly in a rapid circle, then releases one end of the strip, loosing the stone at his target. Theoretically, it is possible to dispatch a zombie with a silent headshot at just under 30 paces. However, even with months of training, the chances of scoring such a hit are 1 in 10 at best. With no experience, the wielder would be better off just throwing stones. That's true. Slings are ridiculously difficult to use effectively. If you're interested in seeing somebody making their own sling, I suggest Primitive Technology. He did just that, utilizing primitive technology. The blowgun. I'm just gonna, it's one sentence. Given that poison has no effect on the undead, discount this weapon entirely. Yeah. Shuriken. For some reason, Max Brooks has like a Japanese bladed weapon fetish. He, like, for lack of a better term, he like literally cock rides the katana throughout the book, and like promotes the Shaolin Spade, which is retardedly impractical to even find in America, let alone use. And then look here. Shurikens, these small multi-point devices were used in feudal Japan to pierce a human skull. In appearance, they resemble a steel, two-dimensional replica of a shining star, hence their nickname, throwing stars. In expert hands, they could easily bring down a zombie. Alright, let's review. The diameter of a shuriken is like this. The force required to go through a human skull is fairly large, and depending how they're impractical. It's dubious at best, especially based on distance. You'll be able to hit a head moving and then penetrate the front of a skull. The side of the skull, it'll probably go in there and do it. But like, come on. I don't think even an expert would have an easy time using them to bring down a zombie. However, as with many weapons discussed, the throwing star requires great expertise. Unless you are one of the few masters of this art, only a handful can still claim this title, and most of them are absolute con artists and woo-woo peddlers. Refrain from such an exotic method. Yeah, just don't do it. He goes over compound bows and crossbows and all that, and flaming arrows and all this. Now, guns. Guns, yo. Alright. Now this is kind of where I think Max goes a little off the rails with his hot takes on guns. So number one, the heavy machine gun. Now I think he just classifies like every belt-fed, or he lumps both light and heavy machine guns into the heavy machine gun category, which is a little bit bogus, because there is a world of difference between a Browning M1919 compared to a Bren gun, or if you want to go more modern, there is a world of difference between even the PKM versus the RPK. This covers things like controllability, effective range, is one more portable than the other, sustained fire, capabilities, and things like that. And to discount machine guns entirely, for the reasons he gives, I think are a little bit silly. Since World War I, this invention has revolutionized human conflict. Its mechanism allows a storm of lead to be discharged in seconds. These tactics may be invaluable on the human battlefield, but are a feckless waste against a living dead. Remember, you are going for a headshot, one bullet precisely placed. As the machine gun is designed for saturation fire, it may take hundreds, even thousands of rounds for one randomly lethal shot. I hate to break it to you, but even though it's a machine gun, it has sights on it. You know, like you line them up and aim them at things you want to hit. So I find it extremely hard to believe that it'd take anybody hundreds of rounds to kill one zombie with it. Unless they are deciding to Rambo the gun and fire it one-handed from the hip. That's insane. Even aiming the machine gun as a rifle, a tactic used by US Special Forces, is a losing proposition. Why hit a zombie with a well-aimed 5-round burst when one well-aimed rifle shot produces the same result? Because you have more bullets going down range. The first one might be off, but the second one might not be, and you will have 4 other shots going down range that may or may not critically wound or kill other zombies. They will travel through soft tissue, travel through the skull, and come out the other side at lethal velocities. It's not rocket science. And you may need quick follow-up shots from a stationary position, or you may be fighting people as opposed to zombies. In the 1970s, one school of thought favored the scythe theory. If a machine gun is placed at the head level of an undead crowd, it could mow them down with one long burst. This argument has been debunked. Ghouls, like the humans they used to be, are not all the same height. Even if some are destroyed, at least half will survive to close in on your position. But what about the massive body damage caused by these weapons? Won't a machine gun have enough punch to rip a body in half? And doesn't that negate the need for a headshot? Yes and no. The standard 5.56 millimeter round used by the US Army SAW squad automatic weapon. We also have machine guns that utilize 7.62 by 39. Does have the ability to snap a human spine, sever limbs, or yes, tear a zombie's form in two. This, however, does not mean a headshot is unnecessary. For one, the chance of dismembering a zombie is slight, and therefore requires large amounts of ammunition. For another, unless the brain is destroyed, the zombie itself is still alive. Crippled, yes, perhaps even immobile, but still alive. Why give yourself the unnecessary need of having to finish off a mass of writhing and potentially dangerous body parts? Machine guns have a use case. For one thing, if you're in an elevated position firing down into a crowd, the whole height bullshit doesn't matter. Since you're literally firing down to this large mass, every shot that comes down has a high likelihood of going into a head. I think the main issues are portability and ammunition consumption. Those are the main two problems. They're not portable guns, even in the best of cases. They require a crew of men to operate, and sustained fire requires changing the barrels out in some cases. Or, like I said, a crew of men to keep the gun running smoothly. New belts, in some very vintage light machine guns, new sticks of ammunition to feed in. New magazines. That's the problem with the machine gun, not that, somebody's gonna try and mount the gun at head level and do some bullshit with it. No. Like I said, you find an elevated position, preferably on whatever wall or the roof of a house that you are on, and you fire down. It's all heads. I also find Max's take on submachine guns to be especially goofy. The problem presented by this weapon is similar to that of the heavy machine gun. Ammo expended versus living dead dispatched. However, when fighting in tight quarters, the submachine gun finds its niche. The short barrel makes it easier to handle than a rifle, but the folding stock gives it much more support than a pistol. Always be sure to keep it on the single shot setting, or, have good trigger discipline. As we discussed, full auto is simply a waste of ammo, not necessarily. Also be sure to aim it from the shoulder. Shooting from the hip will produce nothing more than a loud noise and a clean miss. Again, oh no, I'm not gonna go there. One disadvantage is poor accuracy at long range. Because a submachine gun was designed as a close combat weapon, you'll have to get much closer to a zombie than if you were carrying a rifle or assault weapon. This would normally not be a problem, except that submachine guns, like all auto and semi-automatic weapons, have the possibility of jamming while in use. If you take care of the gun, and if you find one that's not a pile of shit like a Tech 9, it's not gonna jam a lot. Even if it does, clearing a jam should be part of your training regime. In most open bolt submachine guns, clearing a jam is as simple as racking the bolt and tipping out, or holding the bolt back and tipping out a stuck case. That's not a complicated process. At short range, you may be putting yourself at unnecessary risk. This is the only reason to discount a submachine gun as your primary weapon. Okay, again, submachine guns have sights. They are effective to at least 100 meters, probably more. And the big benefit of submachine guns is portability, fire suppression, and their weight. They also, well, no, let me go over that again. Their portability, which includes weight, ability for quick and rapid follow-up shots, and if they utilize pistol caliber ammunition in a much more effective way than actual pistols. For example, let's take something fairly famous, like this, not the PPSH. Let's do something that everybody knows about, the Thompson, right? 1928 Thompson, muzzle velocity 920 feet per second. Great. Let's go to the Colt 1911. Why is the Colt not here? Mauser. But where is the Colt? Here we are. 830 feet per second. And you've got a much shorter sight radius, making longer range shooting a lot less effective. You get an extra, you get an extra 100 feet per second out of the Thompson. And while the Thompson is not exactly the most controllable submachine gun out there, I can repeat this with the MP40, let's say. Right? You know, even better, here's the Spectre. Oh, that's got a pistol-length barrel. Here we are, the MP40. Fires 9mm parabellum at 1,300 feet per second out of its, let's see, barrel length, 9.5 inches. So you're getting 1,300 feet per second. The Luger managed to get 1,247 feet per second. Honestly, I'm fairly certain you'd get, you know, a bigger gain out of that sort of barrel, but let's go with that. That's still a gain of, what, 75 feet per second, and you get a larger sight radius, a stock, and, you know, you get 32 rounds in a magazine as opposed to 8. Essentially, what I'm saying is submachine guns can be used as a rifle replacement if you're on the move, or are fighting primarily in urban areas, and a pistol, you know, you have a pistol as your backup and you want to be able to share ammunition between your primary and secondary weapon, which is a concept that goes back as far as the Wild West, where frontiersmen would commonly have their revolver and like 44 Colt and a carbine and 44 Colt, or like something like that. So to discount a submachine gun, I think is retarded, for lack of a better word. He also discounts assault rifles and goes right to bolt and single shot and semi-automatic rifles, which is a little bit silly. He also discounts pistols, which I think is, again, a little bit silly. They're a great backup weapon, and I think with proper discipline, you know, you're straight, you know. But that's enough about my my ideas on the whole thing. Now he goes on to say silencers could be vital. The thing is, silencers, you have to have a threaded barrel. You can't just slip that bad boy onto anything. The barrel has to be threaded. The chances of finding a threaded barrel out and about in the wild are pretty low. I'm pretty sure to actually thread a barrel, you need to go through some legal hoops to do so. And it's a pain in the ass, and people generally won't do it. What you can do is get an oil filter and put that bad boy at the end of it. If you can't find a regular silencer but you have a threaded barrel, that's always a possibility. Now it goes over fire and all this. And let's skip ahead to cover some defensive locations. Let's go with the house, right? It's just the basic residential domicile. Immediate defense. The dead have risen. You smell the smoke, hear the sirens. Screams and shots fill the air. You have been unable or unwilling to properly... Oh, one more thing about guns. It's a lot more common to find pistol caliber ammunition than full-size rifle rounds. Because they're cheaper. They're, you know, lighter. You can get more of them and fit them in a certain space as opposed to rifle rounds. So that more people own a pistol as opposed to a rifle. So bottom line is, you're better off using a pistol as a backup and a submachine gun as your main weapon. Or something like a pistol caliber carbine or something like that. And something like this, especially if you're going to be on the move. Back to defending your home. Prepare your home. What now? Although the situation looks grim, it by no means signals your demise. If you take the right actions at the right time, you can save yourself and your family from joining the ranks of the undead. Strategies for 2-story homes. Lock all your doors and windows. Although a pane of glass may not stop a zombie, the sound of its shattering will be the best warning you can get. Run upstairs and turn on the bathtub. Although this sounds foolish, there is no way of knowing when the water will be cut. After a few days, thirst will become your greatest enemy. Find the best weapons possible. See previous chapter. They should be light and, if possible, attachable to your body so you will have the full use of your hands, like a submachine gun, which is designed to be compact and be free, keep you free and mobile. Fucking retarded, dude. I can't believe the guy dunked on SMGs like that. I think submachine guns in a lot of ways are the new pistol caliber carbines. Outside of like the really short ones like a Mac 10 or Mac 11 or like a Spectre or you know, like all the Tech 9's just a piece of shit. Begin stockpiling. The second story. Use the list on pages 71 to 72 as your guide. Most households have at least 50% of the items listed. Do a quick inventory to see what you have. Don't take everything, just the bare essentials. 1 or 2 weapons, some food. You already have a bathtub full of water, a flashlight, and a battery-powered radio. And since most families keep their medical chests upstairs, you won't need anything more. Remember time could be short, so don't spend it all gathering supplies when the most important thing is still ahead. Demolish the staircase. As zombies are unable to climb, this method guarantees you safety. Many have argued that an easier solution would be to board up all the windows and doors. This method is self-defeating because it would take only a few zombies to break through any homemade barricade. No doubt destroying your staircase will take time and energy, but it must be done. Your life depends on it. Do not, under any circumstances, try to burn your stairs away with the hope of controlling the fire. That's utterly insane. Why would you ever do that? Several people have attempted to save time this way. Their efforts have ended in either death by fire or the total destruction of their home. If you have a ladder, use it to continue to stock your upstairs refuge. If not, catalog what you do have, fill all sinks and other receptacles with water, and prepare for a long wait. Or you can make a sheet rope, tie your sheets together, and make a ladder yourself. That way, it's not like really complicated stuff. You can do that. Stay out of sight. If you listen to the radio, do it at minimum volume. When the skies darken, do not turn on the lights. Do not go near windows. Try to make it seem as if the house has been abandoned. This may not stop a random zombie intrusion, but it will help to discourage a mass congregation from descending upon your home. Do not use the phone. As in all disasters, the lines will probably be tied up. One more call only contributes to clogging the system. Keep the ringer on the lowest setting. If a call does come through, by all means answer it, but do so quietly. Make sure it's not Lori on the other end. Plan an alternate escape. You may be safe from zombies, but not from fire. If a gas line bursts, or some fool down the street goes crazy with a Molotov, you may have to abandon your home. Find a bag or other means of carrying essentials, like a bug-out bag. Strategies for single-story homes. If you do not live in a two-story house, the attic will be a less comfortable but equally secure substitute. Most can be secured by simply raising the retractable staircase or removing the temporary ladder. Zombies lack the cognitive ability to build a ladder of their own. If you stay quiet, they will not even know you're there, or they will not even know that an attic exists. Never use a basement as a shelter. Popular horror flicks have shown that in a crunch, this subterranean chamber can protect the living from the dead. This is a dangerous fallacy. Burning, suffocating, or simply starving to death in basements have claimed hundreds of lives over the years. If you find yourself in a one-story home with no attic, grab whatever supplies you can. Take hold of a weapon and climb onto the roof. If the ladder is kicked away or drawn up, there is no reason to kick away a ladder like that. And there is no direct access, a window or trapdoor. The undead will not be able to reach you. Keep still and keep silent to avoid attracting the undead. Zombies in the area will break into the house below you, search it for prey, then wander off. Remain on the roof for as long as you can until supplies are exhausted or you die of exposure, or a rescue patrol arrives. It may not be comfortable, but it is your best chance for survival. Eventually it will become inevitable to abandon this refuge. Again, see on the run. So let's go over some public spaces. Some of the more interesting ones, like, say, shopping malls. That's an interesting one. A practically indefensible structure. Large shopping centers are always targets for both humans and zombies. It is always the case with social disturbance. At the first sign of trouble, these concentrations of wealth swarm with private security, police, and even overzealous shop owners. If the crisis occurs suddenly, a large number of shoppers may become trapped within the mall, creating problems of overcrowding, trampling, and suffocation, as well as attracting the dead. In an outbreak of any class, heading for a shopping mall would mean heading for a center of chaos. Sounds fun. Here's an interesting one. Shipyards. Despite the fact they frequently are the storage site for industrial waste and hazardous materials, shipyards do present undeniable possibilities for refuge. Like warehouses, their containers can be transformed into barriers, or in some cases, even weapons. See 1994 San Pedro, California. The ships themselves become ready havens once the gangway has been secured. But before boarding, make sure you check these waterborne fortresses for infected crew, particularly in smaller recreational marinas. In the first stages of an outbreak, citizens will no doubt flock to the shoreline, hoping to use or steal any available cabin cruiser. Because many marinas are built in relatively shallow